To those waiting with bated breath for that favorite media catchphrase, the U-turn, I have only one thing to say. U-turn if you want to. The ladies not for turning.
Welcome to the Fidelis Leadership Podcast, a place of learning for those who aspire to leadership excellence. Here's our host, Mike Etor.
Leslie Baker, welcome back, my friend.
Hello,
how
Mike.
are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me again.
Good. Well, for the audience, you probably have seen Leslie before, and I would urge you to look at her previous episodes, which are episodes 130 and 131. And as you all know, this is episode 132. So I wanted to do Leslie's interviews on a variety of subjects packed together for continuity. But Leslie did two really good interviews before, so I would encourage you to watch those prior to you watching this one, because this was on pretty much an entirely different subject. We're going to talk a lot about a book that you wrote, somewhat controversial, and I'll tease the audience right up front. Leslie could write a book like this. If myself or another man wrote another book like this, we would be in deep trouble with the general female public out there in corporate America. So I'm stealing a little bit of your thunder. Before we get do that, let's just do another cliff notes of your background story, Leslie. Where were you born? What do you do? I know you're not a Michigan Wolverine fan. You made that clear last time. So tell us a little bit more about Leslie Baker, and we'll move on.
Like Mike said, my name is Leslie Baker. I am a native Michigander, born and raised in Michigan. I've spent the last 20 years of my career in the human resources field. I'm also the founder of Seasoned Solutions Group. In previous episodes, I briefly touched about what we did, but I'll expand on it now to kind of give myself some credibility as we continue with this discussion. So Seasoned Solutions Group is an HR consulting firm. So we specialize for organizations that don't have the overhead or the budget to hire someone full time. They can come in and help, and we can help them create an HR department, possibly train new HR folks for them, or for an organization that already has an HR organization and is needing a little bit more assistance, we can step in and help on that as well. I also have a book out there called Script for Success, Turn Tough Talks into Career Wins. And then as Mike alluded to, we're going to talk today about Culture Code Breaker, When Oppression Wears Lipstick and Heels.
Wow. All right. Here we go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the more robust description of what you're doing and all of that. Let's do this one again, too, Leslie. Again, the cliff notes. I always ask everybody if someone saw these podcasts and hadn't listened to them, they saw you in the airport and you're rushing to get your plane. What's your elevator speech when they say, "Oh, Leslie Baker, I'm a fan of I got your book. What's your leadership philosophy? What's your philosophy of leadership?" What would you tell them?
My leadership philosophy actually is encompassed in everything that I do. Hold yourself and your team accountable, communicate with transparency, and be reliable. So if you're someone who can't be, if you can't be reliable, if you can't communicate, and if you can't set expectations for yourself or someone else, then you really shouldn't call yourself a leader. So that is my leadership philosophy in a nutshell.
Good job. Well, thank you for that. So you wrote this book, and now it's time to expose it. So, titled Culture Code Breaker, and it's got an appealing subtitle. So why don't we hold it up there and see if you can get it in focus. So there's the book, folks. It's out of focus, Leslie. Move it backward, I think. It's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Move it to the center a little bit, or, there you go. Well, anyway, fans, they'll put the link up. We can't master the nuances of distance to the camera and all of that. As you can see, we're not professional video people. So Leslie, why don't you read the book's subtitle, and why is the audience wondering why you can write this book and Mike could not?
So The title of the book is Culture Codebreaker, and the logo is a two lipstick and a black stiletto heel. And the subtitle is When Oppression Wears Lipstick and Heels. So this book is about how women treat each other in the workforce. So as Mike alluded to, no man can talk about how women interact in the workforce without being pounced on by other women. Whereas I can come out and I can tell you the truth about this is how we actually treat each other in the workforce. I believe this is different because in my 20 years out there in the workforce, you always hear about different women saying, oh, let's empower each other. Let's lift each other up. Let's, support each other, which is great. And there's some wonderful books out there by female leaders that really do talk about how can we support each other. The problem I have with stuff like that, and over the years, every time I've either read the book or I've been to the training, I always walked away with the thought of, yeah, but what is the truth? You're sugarcoating it. You're telling it like it should be, but what is the truth about how it really is? And that's basically what this book is about. It exposes the truth of what young female professionals that are just entering the workforce, what they can expect. Hence the name Culture Codebreaker. So a lot of times, I can say for myself, when I first entered the workforce, no one told me what it was going to be like working with other women. We always talk about the glass ceiling, and we always talk about how the man oppresses us. In actuality, it's got nothing to do with men. It's got to do with how women treat each other. So I wanted to be clear on something. This is not a feminist book. It is not feminist discussions. We don't talk about men at all in this book. It's strictly about how women treat each other in the workforce and what needs to happen so that we can change that culture. So going forward, future female leaders are not repeating the cycle, and they can lead better in the future.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to make a statement now. I've already said this to you a few times, and I have said this for the audience, male and female. I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. Now, I've been around leadership for a long time, even in the business world. 15 years as a senior executive in a large publicly traded company. A lot of males and females there in various roles. And then as an executive coach and consultant, so I've been in dozens of companies, over the last 10 years or so. And I am here to tell you in maybe plainer English than even Leslie just said, and she's very direct about it. I've realized that women for generations did in fact face a very hostile environment. In the world, much less in the business environment. I graduated high school, Leslie, in 1974, and most of the people that went to college were guys. Some women, but I would say an equal or close to equal amount of women. That if let's say if 50 of them went to college, 30 or 40 of them went to secretarial school. Because even if a woman was a college graduate back then, the male-dominated culture in the business world just associated women with support roles, executive assistants, administrative assistants, low-level, dirty little jobs people, coffee, make the coffee, that kind of stuff, appointment makers. And that was a hard nut to crack. And so I applaud women and their male allies for cracking that nut and hoping that glass ceiling to be broken and all that. That said, when I entered the business world, I expected that, knowing this and not wanting to be a typical male chauvinist and all of that, and everybody knows from the prior two episodes, we worked together. And I was a senior person and you were young. You were not a senior person. You were pretty much an entry-level person. And I don't think you ever got any vibe from me or my department that you were limited just because you were a woman. In fact, I think you saw that I spent a lot of time with you in a mentoring role. And why would I do that if I didn't think you had high potential, you know? So I expected women to be the staunchest allies of other women. And boy, that's not what I saw, Leslie.
No.
I saw just the opposite, and a startling number of instances where not only was this more senior, more tenured, older woman, maybe just 10 years older, or with 3 more years in the company than this new woman, I not only saw them not be allies, I saw them as active opponents and criticizers and disablers of that person's progress. Yeah. They were a part of the problem that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And I had the presence of mind to ask somebody one time at K-Force. She was a little bit older than you. So let's say at the time this woman was 30. You know her, but I'm not going to mention any names. And she was young, beautiful. You know, she was a beautiful woman with a lovely physical figure. I'll make that. She was a beautiful woman in every respect. And as a man, you can't help but, even as a woman, you can't help but notice this was a good-looking woman and a good person and an effective businesswoman. But I saw her interact with a woman who was probably 15 years her senior. And that woman did nothing but savage her. And I think there was a few reasons why. I think that woman was jealous of the more beautiful younger version because she was on a different track. She was on clearly going places. And the older woman was in more of that support role track. Mm-hmm. But it got to the point where I actually had to take the older woman aside and say, hey, I don't know if you know this, but no, that's not going to happen here.
Yeah. And if you talk to a lot of women in the professional world, they will tell you, I don't like working with other women. I would prefer to report to a man, or I would prefer to work with other men. I don't want to work with other women because we are so brutal against each other.
Well, I think you're right, and I'm going to shut up here right now, but I wanted to make sure these are the statements that if I go out and make it as a man, in fact, I'm going to title this podcast, the title of it, Leslie Baker, title of the podcast, Women Are the Problem, ! Yeah. Now that's going to be, when I post that on LinkedIn and all the platforms, you know, women are going to be like, what? You know, and they're going to click in and I want them to listen to it. But I'm just saying, I know that everything you're about to say, I, as a man, have seen it happen in spades. And I think what your main purpose, intent is with this book would have been great for you to read.
Yeah.
When you were first breaking out, so that you at least know, okay, it might not happen, but she's telling me if I stick around long enough, it's going to happen. Or even more importantly, or when I get in a leadership role, I have to make sure that other people don't do this in my group. Because I don't want it, but I can't tolerate it. Yeah. And I have seen women, I've seen such supportive women that were supportive of men and women. And then I've seen men, I found most men today are, you know, equally enthusiastic about women and men, their upward career potential. I don't think there's anything, unless there's a physical aspect like professional sports or working on an oil rig where they say, well, I need a stronger physical body, so it's got to be a man. Aside from that, I think most men get it nowadays. There's laws that kind of make sure that they get it. And I think most women get it, but the amount of, I say the vast majority of angst and bad actors that younger women are going to face, or any women are going to face, are from other women.
Yeah.
And I would say, for the most part, if you have any enemies out there, people who mean you wrong, who are jealous of you, who will stifle your career progression, it's probably going to be another woman.
Yeah.
With that, I will shut up and let you rock and roll. So I think that everybody knows where we're going here. So why don't I ask you this question? I think this is going to be shocking to some women that read this. I think a lot of men and women, especially women, are going to be nodding their head and say, boy, she is nailing it. Mike's got it right. And Leslie certainly got it right, because I have felt that at numerous companies from various women. Not all, but enough to say, whoa, they're right. I wish I'd have known. It caught me blindsided the first couple times, you know? So with the younger woman in mind, and really the younger anybody, the older leader who's not aware of this, you know, he's 45, 50 years old, and he's listening to us talk like, what? I never thought about it that way, you know? What do you think what is the biggest misconception that young women have about workplace culture as they walk into it for the first time?
Well, so a couple months ago, my niece and I were sitting in a coffee shop, and we were talking about my book. She's really young. She just started entering the workforce, and I was talking to her about it when I started putting this book together and then letting her know. And we are at this coffee shop, and this young girl comes in, and she is still in college. She was on her internship, and she overheard us, and she came over and she was talking with us. And she said, you know, I'm in my internship at this large company. She goes, I go in there and I'm expecting, welcoming. And I thought everybody was going to be my friend. And she goes, that's not what I experienced at all. I experienced seclusion. I experienced other women who judged me without knowing me. So I think there's the misconception with young young men might experience this as well. I don't know, but this is from my perspective. I think a lot of the women who are out there in college, or who are anybody getting ready to start in the workforce, I think they don't have the true concept of what it's really like to work with other women. And I always make the analogy that, have you ever seen two lionesses fighting over a carcass? You can see how brutal they are. That's my experience with what it's been like with other women in the workforce. So our target market is for those young women who are entering the workforce, and just making them aware of what they could experience. I'm not saying every woman is like this, but from my experience and a lot of the individuals that I've talked with, and even you've experienced this is usually what happens behind the scenes that we're really not talking about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You've mentioned to me before that, we all come in and we think the workplace is a true meritocracy.
Yeah.
And for the most part, if you get in a good company, it really is. But even in a company that it is a meritocracy, and the senior leaders say, no, we promote on merit here, blah, blah, blah. I find, I'm preaching to the choir, but I want to get your thoughts on this. I find that the vast majority of the insurgents, so to speak, that are violating the concept of pure merit are other women toward other women.
Yes.
And I don't know why, Leslie. So first of all, do you agree with that? And any idea why this phenomenon seems to be happening?
I agree 100%. And to piggyback off with one of your previous conversations, before I say why I think it is happening, in the book we talk about the two generations that are ultimately driving the workforce out there right now. We've got your baby boomers and your Gen Xers. They are the ones who've been with the organizations longer, who traditionally are higher up in management. Your baby boomers, like you said, those are the women who traditionally were in jobs where they were being oppressed by men, where they were being secretaries and they were being stereotypes. So they're bringing all that baggage with them in today's workforce, where, maybe they are thinking that, I got to do this to get ahead, because if not, it'll be back like it was before, where women had to fight to get out of those stereotypical roles. And then you have your Gen Xers, and I can speak from this as well, as I'm a latchkey kid. Do you remember what latchkey meant?
Why don't you say what that is? Because a lot of people, especially the younger people, won't remember that term. They don't know what it means.
So latchkey kids, that was the first generation where you didn't have two parents at home. Prior to, I don't know what year it was, you always had the husband went out and worked, and the wife stayed home and took care of the kids, and she was in the kitchen cooking and cleaning. When our generation came around, that's when two parents were outside of the house when they were having to work. So we, as latchkey kids, we were responsible for getting ourselves home from school, to take care of, making dinner, making sure the younger siblings were okay. So basically, again, and this was the day before cell phones and tracking and all that. So when your parents were at work, they didn't know what you were doing. So you basically had a couple hours of freedom where you had to make sure you didn't kill yourself and you didn't let your siblings die. So that's why they called us latchkey kids, because we were having to be very much self-sufficient. So fast forward.
Specifically, let me interrupt and hold that thought.
Okay.
Specifically for the audience, the latchkey term implied that for the first time ever in American history, when children of Leslie's generation came home from school, the parents were not there.
Yeah.
And so they had to reach under the rug or reach above and get the key, let themselves in. And to Leslie's point, they were on their own until mom and dad came home. And sometimes they had to feed themselves and get ready for school or whatever. So I wanted to clarify the specificity of the term. Sorry to interrupt your mojo, but please go forth.
So fast forward, years and years, me as a latchkey kid, where I was forced to have to be self-sufficient and take care of myself. Now I'm out in the workforce. I'm still self-sufficient, and I don't slow down to help the younger generation. So you have the younger generations coming in. You've got people who are self-sufficient, who don't want to slow down or necessarily can't slow down because the way their brain is programmed. And then you have the baby boomers that are out there and they're in, I don't want to say survival mode, but they're in a situation where they have to be in that mode because they don't want to go back to the way it was, where they were pegged as, just a secretary or somebody who gets coffee. So you got these two dynamics of workforce women out there who both have their own issues, who've never really maybe not dealt with them. And then on top of that, you have individual insecurities. And so now you have all this baggage that the older generations are inflicting upon the younger generations. So if you got a young woman coming out of college and she's going out in the world and she's ready to conquer the world and she's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and she's so excited, and then she gets out there and she hits a brick wall with these two generations, it kind of deflates their ego. And then they're sitting there internalizing, going, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? When it has nothing to do at all with that young individual. So the book isn't about beating anybody up. It's about helping the younger generations recognize what's going on so that they don't take it and internalize it and think that there's something wrong with them. They recognize it. They say, okay, I know what's going on. I was warned about this. I'm just going to keep moving forward. And there's strategies and tips in there as well as what they can do to protect their own career, protect their sanity, to protect their self-worth when everything else is going on.
And I want to, thank you for that. And I want to make a statement of the obvious, again, for the audience, that some people may be shocked by what you're saying. And I want to reemphasize to them, this is not just Leslie's opinion based upon her own observations of how she was treated. As a 20-year-plus human resources individual, though it may not have affected her specifically in most of these companies as she got older and wiser. I'm putting words in your mouth, Leslie. You tell me if it's true. You have seen this dozens of times with other women.
And I want to correct you there that this does not change with age.
Yes.
So I'm going to say something very controversial here, but you and I were talking previously about a conversation about appearance. The thinner you are, the younger you are, the prettier you are, the smarter you are, the blonder you are, the more brunette you are, it doesn't matter. You're still going to experience this regardless of your age.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
So to go back to what you said, being in HR, you bring, and this is why this is important for leaders out there, is because when you have new hires come on board, specifically young females that come on board, if you don't know this is what they're going to face, I can't tell you how many times we've onboarded somebody and within maybe the maximum the first 30 days, they're in my office crying because they don't understand what they did wrong to warrant behavior from other women towards them. So if a leader, it goes back to, if you know what's going on, you got to take care of it. And if you don't know what's going on, then you have to be aware.
I agree with that. And thanks for pointing that out, Leslie, because that's been my experience as well. And so I'll say this and let you opine on it. No, I think you're right. Age really, it doesn't get extinct with age. You don't age out of this if you're a woman. I deal a lot at the executive level. And I am here to tell you that, let's just say in the Acme Corporation, I always use the Acme Corporation because that was the old Roadrunner commercials.
Yeah.
That was always buying stuff from Acme company to crush the Roadrunner, never worked. So at Acme company, let's just say there are a few women in the upper senior leader ranks, executive and maybe VP, one level below. And for the most part, they appear to get along, and they generally treat other women right. What I have seen is that happy allied, existence more often, well, not more often than not, but surprisingly frequently, more than you would expect, I think, as a layperson, you start talking about elevating one of those VPs to a senior VP or executive role. And it's not uncommon for one of the most senior women at that level to all of a sudden say, hey, I was cool with her one level below me. But if she's here and she's sitting next to me in the weekly executive meeting, she's it could be catty stuff that she's younger than me, she's better looking than me, or she, the difference between me and her is going to become starkly apparent if we're side by side. Right now, I'm happy because she is so talented. I'm glad I don't have to compete with her. But if she's at my level, in a way, I am competing with her because she might make me look bad just by doing what she normally does. She's that good. I don't know if I'm saying it well, but what I'm telling the young women out there, or any woman, just because you get along with women A, B, and C, now doesn't mean when they start saying, hey, look, woman A, B, and C, we're thinking about doing this with woman D. We're thinking about promoting her and bringing her up a level and making her your equal. Boy, that's the moment of truth. And that's when you often find out, there's some big problems there. And I want to get your thought on that. And I will just say this, that sudden transition from peaceful coexistence in paradise to one of hostility, passive or active, that exists with men too. Yeah. I seen the same thing,
Well, and here's the thing, it's not blatant. It's little, you don't have two women coming right out and swearing at each other's, it's not obvious. It's the little things like you send out an email and you forget to include the other female on the email and say, oh, I'm sorry, it was an oversight. Or, you talk about the two individuals that are on the same level and one is going to get promoted than the other. Well, the one will start going behind the other's individual's back and start planting seeds of doubts in the decision maker to then, you're undermining that individual behind their back without them even knowing it. So it's little subtle things that women do. Whereas it would be a lot easier if they would just come right out and be like, hey, you know what, you're bitch, cut it out. It's the undermining and the things that they do behind the back. That's what really hurts somebody.
Yeah, I like that. And, one of the questions I was going to ask you, and I think you already answered it, at least partially, but I want to focus you on the question is, you often write that women aren't each other's competition, but boy, in many cases, they often start acting like it.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything, is it older women who look at a younger woman and say, well, you didn't have to fight like I did. It's all being handed to you. These men treat you good. When I came in, there was sexist comments and sexual harassment, and they would just flat out essentially tell me, you're at the level you're going to be at. You're never going to be making the big bucks here as a decision maker because we don't like women on the executive team. Do you think there's some kind of you haven't paid your dues, and or is there anything out there that you haven't spoken of already, but what causes women to consciously or subconsciously act in such a way toward other women, be they younger or older?
I think it's individuals' insecurities. So being in HR, I'm usually privy to other individuals' personal information. I mean, if you got somebody who's got an issue going on at work and you find out, hey, that individual's being, subjected to domestic violence at home, she has no control or power at home, so then she comes to work and she's controlling and has all the power at work. So I think it has to come back to each individual's insecurities. That, if you've got an individual who's older, who did not have a college degree or maybe didn't even go to high school, graduate from high school, and you have a young woman come in who went to college, got her bachelor's degree, is on a clear trajectory towards, a bright future. Well, you as the other older individual, you're kind of limited to where you can go. So instead of owning it and saying, okay, this was my path that I chose in life, I'm going to subject my insecurities off on that individual. And it's whether it's withholding information or not being very nice to them or backstabbing them, whatever it is, I think insecurity plays a lot of role in why women treat each other the way that they do. And why, I don't know. I mean, I put in the book, I heard many, many years ago that this stems from back in the caveman days when there weren't a lot of men and there were females, and females had to fight each other to get for the male so they could reproduce. And I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do find, yes, a lot of times the issues that I've seen with other people is the insecurities of one individual subjecting them on another individual. And I do put in the book here, I talk to the audience in the book about owning your insecurities. If you know what they are, you can keep them under control and don't subject them and turn them into a weapon towards other individuals.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I agree with that. And I'll share this with you, get your opinion on it. I do think that women do this largely because of two forms of insecurity. One, insecure in their own competence.
Oh, yeah.
And that, elevating another woman might be, subtraction through addition, so to speak. In other words, I'm here, I'm the only senior woman. They put this woman next to me, and they're going to have a frame of reference to compare. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure. In fact, I maybe even know I can't compete with this woman, be she young or old. She's just got her act together. In fact, if we were competing for one role, they'd probably choose her for my role, if she was available 5 years ago. So that's that personal insecurity. I also think, and you haven't touched upon it, we've hit on it obliquely, is I think a lot of women, their situation in most companies is that men are still the most senior decision makers. There are a lot of women CEOs these days and executives, but the percentage of it is still, small compared to male CEOs at every level, Fortune 50, Fortune 500, privately owned and all that. So I think another form of insecurity among women is that they feel sometimes their personal relationship with the senior men, the decision makers, could be threatened by the presence of another woman. Another anybody, really, but we're talking specifically about the woman-on-woman phenomenon, because I have experienced that with men too, you know. It's like, I'll use myself as an example. I like Mike. He certainly gets things done. Oh, man, you're talking about moving him up to my level, and I think he could become the go-to guy instead of me.
Well, so let me ask you this, Mike. Interestingly enough, my niece and I were just having this discussion the other day. So women, stop and ask yourself, if you're insecure and you're having thoughts like that about, oh no, they're going to move Mike up instead of me, well, it's no wonder why there's a glass ceiling. Because if we keep acting the way that we act, what man is going to promote somebody who acts like that?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree with that. I am a purist. You work with me and for me. And not only would I not do that personally and not condone it, I would think very poorly of any leader at any level that would not hire someone out of fear of this guy. They think I'm an A player. This guy is truly a meat eater A player. And if I hire him and bring him to my organization, it won't be long before they start considering him for elevated roles and important things and jobs than me. And I'll emphasize this with you worked with me, and when I was hiring a lot of former military guys for our leadership development program. And I hired a guy one time. I had a somewhat impressive military resume. And I hired another retired Marine officer who had the same exact resume as me, same awards, same prestigious recognition, same good reputation. And the CEO, when he read his bio, said, "Wow, Mike, this guy's got a lot of what you got." I told him, I said, "Let me tell you something, Dave. Not only does he have a lot of it on paper, if you'd have found him before you found me, you probably would have hired him for my job instead of me. And I'm okay with that." And he goes, "Oh, there's room for both of you." He said, "I got to be honest with you. What you just did speaks volumes about you. I want people not to be afraid to hire people that are stronger than them." And I said, well, I personally, if I'm an alpha male lead sled dog, I have always flourished I love being in environments with other meat eaters, with guys that look to my left and right like, man, look at these guys and gals. I mean, man, I got to work hard to keep up with them, but I'm certainly not better than them. And he said, yeah, but not everybody's like that, Mike. And out here, a lot of people wouldn't hire someone like that out of fear of, if I introduce this guy, he might eclipse me and he might damage my upward mobility. So I don't think that's a male or female thing. Since we're talking about the female domain right now, you've already said you've seen it. What would you say to leaders, male or female, so that they could be cognizant of someone within their organization maybe having this kind of attitude? Because I certainly didn't mean for this to happen. And I did a good job of evangelizing it and supervising it and looking out for it, but I can't tell you for sure that it never happened within any organization I was ever in charge of. That somewhere below said, we got this job opening. I know this person. She'd be a great fit. Yeah, she ain't coming into my domain anytime soon because I don't want to compete with this person. Have you seen that?
Absolutely. I was with an organization where the two of the high executives were females and the CEO was a male. And the two, I don't know what, well, I do know why they didn't get along. Both of them had their own insecurities, but they tried to vie for his attention. And they would go and they would each talk about each other behind their back to him. He, as the leader, should have told them, stop it. put the end of that. Don't let them continue to do that, because what happens is then you get silos that developed and your company will split in half, where you've got one team versus the other. And if you aren't going to take care of it, then you better understand that productivity is going to go down. You're going to create a toxic environment. Kind of goes back to earlier discussions that we had, because you have to step up and have those difficult conversations to say, cut it out. Stop acting like this. Act like an adult. We can all get along. We all have our own strengths. We all have our own weaknesses. But if we can work together, we can overcome a lot of this. But what I see is a lot of the leaders don't deal with that. I've seen it with male leaders, that they just don't want to get involved with women's arguments because they know what it's like and they don't want to deal with that drama.
I agree with that. I think a lot of men have seen lawsuits happen and other things where, hey, I'm not wading into that swamp, which is really a shame, because they're avoiding a problem or an issue that needs their leadership if they're in charge of those people or that situation.
So I go back to my earlier question then. If you've got women that are squabbling over here and you've got a male counterpart who's minding his business and doing his work, why wouldn't that male counterpart get elevated or promoted over two squabbling females?
Well, bingo.
Yeah.
And I will say this, yes, male or female.
Yeah.
Decision makers, if they have a viable alternative, they are going to pick the lesser talented guy that's not, or gal, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Is not all of a sudden going to come in and just be a prickly pear, like, gosh, she's so talented, or he is so talented. This is a unisex thing and can do the job better than anybody in the company. But if I elevate this person, so much baggage comes with it.
Yeah.
That it'll just slow us down and alienate and maybe even cause people to leave, that I will take the lesser talented, more steady, stable person.
But then what happens then? So if it's a man that's being elevated, they're being chauvinist. Oh, it's the glass ceiling. If it's a female that's being promoted over the other two ones that are squawking, well, she slept her way to the top.
Yeah, I agree with that. Boy, that one is a vicious one. And I would just say this, one of my leadership lessons is, can you pass the caller ID test? And what I'm talking about. When I call somebody on my cell, it says Mike Etor. Now, some people, you can adjust it. So when I ring some people, it might say, that overbearing idiot is calling me. Anyway, if it was Mike Etor, I wanted to believe that when my people saw me when I was working in corporate America, they identified me with, okay, Mike's my boss, but Mike's a value add. Mike has helped me. So he's either calling me about something that I'm not aware of, or he's calling me to say, hey, I'm aware you're doing this. Is there any way I can help you? And they'll answer the phone if I call them. I want to believe that. If they identify Mike Etor on the caller ID with ass chewings, or it's not good enough, or just a waste of their time, they're going to flip it to voicemail and say, I'll deal with it later. I'm having a good day, and I'm going to wait till about 3:30 to see what he wants, so he can only mess up a little bit of my day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm saying is, male or female, what's your caller ID to the decision makers? Are you a credible professional, period? Or are you a credible professional, but dragging along a whole train load of baggage and, well, he or she is good, but she's prone to doing this, or he's prone to doing that. That's the first one. The second one, to again tailor it more toward women, I have seen professionally credible and competent women intentionally, and I say rightfully, passed over for career advancement because she has given, for good reason, her MO is whenever something doesn't go right for her, it's never her fault.
Yeah. Yep.
The other person was more qualified,
Yep.
or she just made a mistake. It's sexism.
Yep.
It's institutional or individual bias. If you're doing this because I'm a woman. Now, there is, as you know better than me, Leslie, there's an element of truth. There are men that would do that, and there's women.
Yeah.
But there's even more men and women that wouldn't promote a man or a woman. Let's use women. There are more women out there that won't promote another woman because they're saying that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. If I promote her, can she do this job? Yes. Is she going to be a constant, now at a higher level, irritant to the good order and discipline of this? I mean, now she's in the executive meeting and she's going to start railing on and on about male-dominated this and that, blah, blah, blah. And we just don't have time. So why would we willingly introduce a problem?
Right.
Your thoughts? Have you seen it?
Oh, I have seen it. Yes. Yeah, I agree 100%. And like you said, there's no accountability there. They will blame it on everybody else, but everyone sees what's going on. So I think in their minds, they think that they have masked it and they're hiding it really well, when in reality they aren't.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, back to the book, I do apologize. It's not only about introducing young females to what they can expect, but what can they do once they start recognizing what's going on. So again, it's not something that's bashing. It's something that, I even talk in here about what kind of skills that they can develop so that when they go out in the workforce, it's one less thing that other women can pick apart. Like knowing the skills of writing and reading cursive. You'd be, amazed at how many people can't read or write cursive in the younger generation. Well, so take away that element of them weaponizing that against you. The way you dress as well. You can't go out looking like you're going to go to a nightclub and go to work and wonder why all those other women are talking about you. So there is tips and tricks in here about what you can do to prevent stuff like that happening. So it isn't just about bashing other women, but it is about helping other women.
Yeah, thank you about that. And I want to ask you a question. I plan on asking you this. The book, to your own, statement, to me in private, is it often is like equal parts guide, mirror, and warning label aimed at younger women. So I know that the target audience was primarily younger women, but I got to tell you, Leslie, I didn't know to warn you about this when we first started working together. I learned of this phenomenon by watching you endure it from another older woman. Had your book been available, written by another author, my boss, Larry Stanzak, would have said, Mike, I don't know if you faced this in the Marine Corps, but you need to read this book because as a corporate leader, I know you won't do this, but you need to be aware that your younger females, and maybe even the older ones, might be victims of another woman oppressing them and holding them down and attacking them. And I would have read it, and then I would have given you a copy and said, Larry told me to read this. I'm shocked about this. You read it, and let's talk. At one point, I would have said, are you experiencing that? And do you feel more ready to go, how to counteract it? In your situation, you would have read it and I would have said, all right, I know you're facing this from this woman. What can I do? And what do you think is your job to do relative to her before I get involved? And I think you would have, been more willing to confront her.
Yeah.
And so that's a statement. I'll say this, all of us, male and female, but I think especially females, and you're a female, I don't think I've ever asked you this. were there ever times when you were in your mid-30s and now you're a savvy female and you look back and say, that guy at that other company was a serial sexual harasser, off-color comments, pushing my arm, he's just saying inappropriate things. If I knew then what I know now, I would have done A, B, or C to that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know, and I was afraid because he was a more senior guy, and I didn't want to make waves. I didn't want to be known as a feminist man-hater or complainer, and he got away with it and probably did it to dozens of other women. And I say that reading this book has the ability for younger women to be more prepared to defend themselves and not fall victim of this. Where I'm going with this is I think this book should be equally read by older women and older and younger men. So I'm talking to the men now. Leslie is beating the hell out of women right now, and I'm telling you they deserve it because I've seen it happen. With the caveat that there are so many women out there that are just the opposite. They are mentors, merit-based, the sweetest people, looking for the person and professionally, whether they're male and female. I don't want to point, and you're not trying to broad brush all women at this, but all women need to be aware of this. And I say all men need to be aware of this too, because I was not aware of this. And I was a pretty savvy leader by the time I went into corporate America. I wasn't prepared. I did not expect that women would have to face what you were facing.
Well, and to be very clear, just because you're a man does not mean you won't be subjected to the same behavior. Women that do this do it to both men and women, not just women. But I can only speak to it from my perspective as a female. I've seen them do it to men as well. They do the exact same thing to men, but how the men react and how the men handle it, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. Well, I do know this, Leslie. You wrote a good book here, and the topic is great, and the knowledge you're sharing and advice is great. But there's other books out there. There's other people out. I'm aware of other people out there that their whole business model is what you're talking about, empowering women and all that. So what makes this book that you wrote different from other workplace or women's empowerment, so to speak, books? What's the difference? If there's 3 of them out there, and there's more than 3, if there's 30 of them out there and yours, why should they buy yours instead of the others?
Mine isn't particularly about women empowering women. It's how women can survive other women. Yeah. I always like to make sure that if I write something, it is something that not only causes an individual to reflect, but it causes that individual to also learn something. So there are reflection worksheets that are in this book as well, that when a young individual picks this up and reads it, at the end of a chapter, it'll say, okay, now reflect on what you just read. And what are your boundaries? There's one chapter in here about paychecks and love don't mix. And it talks about if you're a female and you have an individual come that suggests romantic relationships with you at work, don't go down that road because it's never going to work out. It's never going to turn out good for you. So then there's a worksheet about talking about what boundaries will you and will you not cross, and then how to prepare for that. So if you're prepared for something like that ahead of time, that when it does happen, you can react appropriately and calmly and deal with it and put a stop to it, versus if you're not prepared for it, what are you going to do? I mean, I've been in situations in my younger days when I was approached by somebody and I wasn't prepared for it. It caught me off guard. I probably didn't handle it as quickly as what I should have because I wasn't aware of what my boundaries are. Now, fast forward, if you come approach me, I'm going to stop you in your tracks and say, look, these are my boundaries. You just crossed it. Don't do it again. So I always like to make sure that whatever I write, that the reader takes something away that they can use instantly in their own individual life.
Thank you. And if I don't want to bring up any sensitive topics to throw you into a, PTSD situation or something, but are you willing to provide a little bit more dynamics? Because the feel that I'm getting from you with this specific situation is, was it a man, and was there sexual connotations involved with it? Were they making a move on you, sexual harassment, or am I reading it wrong and you would have never let that person get away with it 10 years later?
Yes. And you're right. I would not have, and I didn't let him get away with it then either. It's just that I think when that individual approached me, I caused myself a lot of individual angst and anxiety because I didn't know how to handle it right at the time. I'm old and not so nice at times now, and I can shut you down in a heartbeat. Back then, I didn't know how to. I guess back then I was more worried about, I don't want to hurt your feelings, putting their feelings ahead of my own.
Yeah. I know we're talking mostly about women here, but on the topic of men, even though there are women that sexually harass other women, I would say this to young women out there. Older women are going to nod their heads. Oh, he's so right. But I want to get your opinion of it as a woman, and I know you faced it. I would say, as a male, senior executive, been around a lot, young women out there, even not so young women, if you haven't faced it yet, do not be shocked when someone who is apparently reputable, happily married, senior guy, always friendly, always professional, don't be shocked when, not if, a guy like that ultimately approaches you someday and suggests way out of bounds behavior. Mm-hmm. I think you're beautiful. How'd you like to go out on Friday? Or, hey, we're going on this company trip. Let's get together. What's your hotel room number? That kind of stuff. Every woman I've ever told that to came back to me and said, Mike, at the time I listened to you because I knew you were trying to help me, but I hadn't experienced it. I'm like, you experienced it now? Oh, I can't tell you how many times. Let me ask you a question. What's the most senior guy that's ever tried to pull that on you?
So,
CEO. They said CEO, Leslie. My CEO tried.
Yeah. There was an individual, and he was pretty high up in K-Force, that we had a seminar one time, and young women have to understand that if you are nice, that individual could take it completely differently. And he did end up at my hotel room, and he knocked on my door for a good 2 hours. And then he went back to his room and he kept calling my room as well. And I hid in that room for, I wouldn't come out the next day until I was positive that he had left and gone back to his field office before I came out of that room. I didn't trust him. He had a reputation, and I didn't want to deal with him. Now, fast forward, today I would have yanked that door open and given him a piece of my mind and say, you are interrupting my sleep. Get out of here.
So let me ask you a question, Leslie. This is great. Not that it happened. I don't know who you're talking about. But I think your entire time at K-Force, you worked for me.
Yeah.
Did you tell me about this? Because I don't remember it.
No, I think there was only one other individual who knew about it. And
let me ask you a question. Well, the obvious question is, Leslie, it dovetails with this book. Why didn't you say something to me? I could have helped you or gone to see the guy myself and say, hey, dude, hey, whoa. Why didn't you say anything to me? Because a lot of other women are going to be intimidated to say something when these things happen.
I knew he was a dirtbag, and I knew he was going to get what was coming to him. But you know, for me too, I'm just kind of the type of individual that, whatever, that's your problem. I'm going to go on and do my thing. Even today, if I'm dealing with another woman who's being a complete, bad word, I'm just like, whatever, that's your problem, not mine. And I go about my business.
Yeah.
So
let me counter that with why you messed up, Leslie, and why you should have came to me. Everything you said, I know you as an individual, and I get that. And women, listen to this story, what I'm about to say, the lesson. But because you didn't make me aware of it, I could not have a face-to-face forceful conversation with that guy and tell my boss, hey, I want to let you know this happened. I talked to him. I want you to be aware of it in case he does it again. And I'm gone. It could be 3 years later or something, but I want people to know that he did this at least once. And what do you propose? Is my stiff counseling to him enough, or should this be like, no, now that I know about it, I have to go tell his boss about it? We don't accept that in this company. So your willingness to handle it, you believe effectively, probably enabled that guy to live another day and try that stuff again with somebody.
But you also got to remember, Mike, that you are the type of leader that has great integrity. Not all men are like that. So if you have a young female who goes to their boss and said, hey, this is what happened, and the other guy is at a senior level,
Yeah.
he said, she said kind of thing.
It's why, some would say we're straying. We're not straying. Man or woman, people must have the confidence in their leaders that they themselves will handle situations fairly and not be overly influenced by, okay, Leslie's complaining. She's complaining, and I know it wasn't this guy. She's complaining about the president of the company. And I am not going to go to the CEO and tell him his president is making a move on young girls. I'm not doing that. I want to get promoted here. And if your people don't have the confidence that you would not think like that you would say, I don't give a damn how this makes me look. I'm going to let this can't happen. And this happened to one of my people. I'm not standing for it. So you guys do whatever you want, but I am not going to sit on that information. My people, you had to know, and my people have to know, anybody has to know that their leaders got their back, even when doing so might reflect negatively on them. Retribution could be leveled at them. And I just say this, in the highest level, if you said that to me and I complained and someone told me, just shut your mouth, we're not going to touch this guy, I would have known it was the wrong company for me. And I would have started looking immediately for the right kind of culture that not only said they wanted character, but they actually wanted character and were willing to exercise or excise those who proved otherwise. You guys, you can tell I get kind of pissed off just thinking about that situation.
But you know what? I don't want to say it's rite of passage, because it's not right at all. But I think it happens more to females than what you realize. And after a while, you get kind of, I don't want to say you get used to it, but you're kind of like, oh, whatever. I handled it. Because that wasn't the first time, wasn't the last time. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's part of being a female. I do a casual study. I read an article one time somebody did a study about when a man and a woman are walking toward each other on the sidewalk, in the hallway, or the mall. They wanted to see at what distance did the woman avert her eyes and not look that man in the eye. And when asked, why do you do that, is because I learned long ago that just looking a man in the eye, many would take that as, man, she's into me. This girl's digging me. But just looking at them and smiling would be akin, she's coming on to me. And so we are conditioned to I don't mean to send that message. And the best way to send the message is not even make eye contact with them.
Yeah.
And that's been decades ago. Ever since then, I still do that. I see a woman coming. Of course, I got to believe I got the grandpa looking on now. I'm not a threat to a 25-year-old hot young woman, but she still averts her eyes. I don't say anything because I understand even at that young age, teenage girls do it. They have already learned.
Yeah.
Men can be filthy. Don't do anything that could be remotely construed as leading them on, That's a damn shame, but it is what women are cursed with that men don't have to deal with.
Yeah. So all of the stuff that we've talked about, all the garbage and all the junk that women have had to deal with, that's why I think it's important for this because, ladies, let's stop tearing each other down. We've got so much other crap that we have to deal with. Let's help the younger future leaders understand, hey, this is what you can face so that they're not carrying that same baggage and we're not continuing that behavior.
Yeah, I agree. Last chance, because our time is up. I think you just said it to some extent. You've covered it already, but let's just narrow it. If there's one single thing that the readers of this book should take away from the book, what would it be?
You can set boundaries where you can say, hey, look, I'm not going to put up with this type of behavior. You can do it professionally. You can do it without offending anybody. You can create your own boundaries that's going to protect your career trajectory. And that's what a lot of what's in this book is to teach the young females is how to do that, how to protect your career, how to establish your boundaries, and how to just survive so that you're not being sabotaged by what other women are doing.
Yeah, yes, thank you for that. And I will tell you this, Leslie, you're a big girl now, so to speak. And as well as I do, we put this podcast out there, and there's going to be more than a few women that are going to look at this and consider you a troublemaker and a traitor. Like, we're supposed to stick together, and she's making some of us look bad. And even though some of us are bad, the last thing we need is another woman out there saying some of us are bad, because that'll just have the men say, "Ha, see, I told you. I told you they're not all good, And
my response to that is, what's your first reaction when another woman walks in the room? Is it, oh, she's so nice. Oh, she looks so pretty. Or is, what the hell is she wearing? And that'll give you your answer right there, because I guarantee 9 times out of 10, they're going to be judging the other woman about how they look, on their appearance. They're going to pick them apart.
I'm laughing because you're right. I'll tell you what I witnessed one time early on at K-Force. I was in a fairly senior meeting, and there were a couple women in there that were senior. And again, I knew nothing about this phenomena. And another woman came in to brief, and she gave the brief. And then after she left, we went on a break. And so I sat there and the other women were there. And one woman looked over at the other one and said, "Can you believe the shoes she was wearing?" Yeah. And I looked at them both and I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's not that the brief was good or she made sense or she was totally wrong. You're being so catty that you're criticizing her shoes. And I'm thinking, I've been sitting here for a lot of briefs. Never once have I looked at a man's shoes to look at, oh my God, did you see the shirt the guy was wearing? Oh my God, I'm like, and then I thought, man, I hope people aren't judging me like that, because I'm no fashion plate by any means, Do
you have time for one last story?
Well, always, yes.
So I was at an organization where we had a transgender that was working with us, born a male, transitioning into a female. And this individual decided one day that she was not going to wear a bra to work, because in her mind, she didn't need to wear one. Well, she did. She needed to wear a bra. And someone filed a complaint. And this individual then went out and filed a complaint with the EEOC because I had to go talk to her about, you got to wear a bra, you got to wear your appropriate undergarments. After it was all said and done, EEOC investigation was done. She and I sat down, we talked, and she was going on and on about how it's terrible that men subject us to wearing undergarments and how, men shouldn't have to say. And I said, let me tell you this right now. It wasn't a man who filed the complaint. It was another female. And this transgender individual looked at me and what? I was like, no man cares if you're not wearing a bra. Either they're going to like it or they're not going to even notice. It's the other women who are going to notice that you're not wearing a bra and they're in an uproar because you didn't wear one.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I have had women in that situation, young, beautiful, attractive woman, and she's in the professional environment, and she is amply endowed up there, and she's not wearing a bra. And guys are looking. You can't help but look. But I looked, and I'm like, oh, no. And then another woman who worked with us, looked at me and said, I got it, Mike, I'll talk to her. And that poor young girl, she came in innocent. She may have been a feminist to the point like, I am not wearing a male. Why?
Yeah.
But the reality is, in the corporate world, it's men don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about wearing the right kind of T-shirt so my boobs don't show and all that. But the first thing women got to do is realize that they are born with some physical differences, and that they are facing some severe stereotypes. And for God's sakes, don't do anything that could feed to those stereotypes.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, don't go in there like that, because a lot of men and women will say, well, we know what her career recipe for success is, is to come in, lead with the good looks and all of that. And truthfully, there's no shortage of men out there that would invite her to meetings and promote her just to be around her more, just so they can see her every day,
Yeah.
And if that's your main calling card for promotion, good luck with that. But eventually, it's going to crater on you, because eventually those good looks are going to fade. And that's all you got,
Yeah. And, I also talk in the book too. Unfortunately, back in my day, I didn't have to worry about social media. But these young people nowadays, they got to be cognizant about what you put out on social media is going to be there for the rest of your life. So if you're putting stuff out on social media that's inappropriate, or you're out beer bonging and wet T-shirt contests, fast forward 10, 15 years, and someone's get a hold of that, and they're going to start broadcasting that again. So there is a chapter in here that I talk about, you got to protect your social media, your persona out there, because it will live forever.
Well, you could write a whole other book about that. I'm just glad social media didn't exist when I was.
Oh, I am too.
Yeah, because your judgment is impaired, and my God, there would be pictures out there.
And I can't tell you how many young people that I've talked to that said, oh, my boss won't look at it, HR won't look at it. I guarantee you HR is looking at your social media post. And that is the decision between whether you get the job or not. We are looking at your social media post.
Well, I think it's a requirement. I think now you could actually get sued for being negligent for not looking at somebody's social media. In other words, I tell people this. You hire somebody, before you do, search the internet, search everything. Because shame on you if you hire a guy and you didn't realize his Facebook page is loaded with white supremacist stuff. This guy's a white supremacist.
Yeah.
And you didn't know that, and you hired him, and guess what? You've just introduced him to company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he's going to manifest that pretty quickly. The company's going to get sued, all because you didn't do your due diligence. So I agree with you. If it's out there, it will be looked at.
Oh, yeah. And
if it's bad enough,
you guarantee those women are sitting in the break room just going off on what they saw on social media.
It's funny. I did that one time, and I had a client, executive. I was coaching her. She wanted to move up, and I was coaching her. A lot of my clients were women, are women, and I said, I went out and I wanted to learn about social media. You're a happily married woman now. You got kids. Do you realize that way deep in your photos in Facebook are pictures of you on spring break in a wet T-shirt contest? And she said, no. I said, I scrolled all the way down. You're on the beach with your friends doing what college kids are supposed to do. There's a picture of you and your girlfriends in a club, and you're drinking beer bongs, shots of beer, bong, and you are on stage in a wet T-shirt contest. I said, you might want to go back and, I'm not going to hold it against you. That was 15 years ago. But are you aware it's there? And is it really something you want your children to see?
Yeah.
Now that you're trying to teach them lessons,
Yeah.
She said, well, no, obviously you're right. I had forgotten they were there. And when I posted them, Mike, I was that young girl that, it's what we did. Social media was new. You put it out there. Only my friends are going to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not at all. So anyway, Leslie, thank you for another dynamite episode. Be curious to see what the reception is to this one. It was a sorely needed topic. I'm glad you got the courage to face it and come in here and elaborate on it. So one more time, how can people reach out to you? How can they buy this book and your other books? And, just give us your contact information.
So all my books are on Amazon.com. They're also on my website. It's seasonssolutionsgroup.com. They could reach out to me via LinkedIn at Leslie Baker, and they can also email me at leslie@seasonssolutionsgroup.com. Also wanted to make a plug for my niece and I are actually doing a podcast about this book, and it is called Culture Codebreaker, where we are specifically sitting down and talking with young women about what they can expect in the workplace. We'll get my perspective, plus they'll get my niece's perspective, who is this cute little 20-something going out in the workforce world, and she thinks she's going to conquer it. And let's talk about what you're really going to experience. So we got that as well.
Where will that podcast be hosted?
It will be hosted on YouTube. And so the channel is Culture Codebreaker on YouTube. And then we'll also have snippets on TikTok as well.
Cool.
Now,
let me know, and I'll put it out to my network as well.
What's interesting is because she's younger, she's handling all the social media, and she keeps asking me these questions. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, just do what you got to do. So
be careful with that. Because her version of that may not match your professional style. Oh
yeah.
But anyway, that would be a compelling podcast. So let me know when you put it out there.
And we invite people. I mean, this isn't Leslie's world, and Leslie's word is the Bible. We invite people to, reach out to us, talk to us about what your experience has been. What do you think we could do differently as well? So this isn't something that is one and done. This is something that I'm hoping can lead to how we start changing culture. Because Lord knows we need to change it. For it. The way everything is going now, we do need to change.
Great. Yes, I agree. Well, Leslie, I can't thank you enough. And for the audience, again, check out Leslie Baker, episodes 130, 131, and this is 132, obviously. Thanks so much, my friend. And I would respectfully ask that you consider coming back and doing another one.
Okay, I will.
All right, Leslie, be well.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe, rate, review, and recommend to your friends. Please visit our website at fidelisleadership.com and sign up for our leadership newsletter. Until next time, remember the words of the ancient Greek philosopher Pericles.
What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but is woven in the lives of others.